Hello and welcome to Conk's Corner, the show where I fight evil wherever it may turn up. But I'm actually reading Harry Potter. I've done so since the beginning of the pandemic, so I've also haven't read the books yet. We're close towards the end, I think, of the last book. So please no spoilers in the chat or in the comments. And that means anything up until now. Don't spoil anything. Hello, everybody. Hello, hello, hello. And also, today is Tasha's birthday. Happy birthday! Happy birthday! Happy birthday to Tasha! From him also. From him also. All right, buddy. I won't torture anymore. Off you go. So, we left off in a pretty intense moment last time. The battle, battle is already starting, although Harry's not in the thick of it. He's running around the castle trying to trying to break Horcruxes that he knows are there. Ron and Hermione broke one on their own. So now it's off to the very last one, the diadem. The diadem. So we'll see where it goes. I know they're in a dark place, so let's just get started, shall we? Okay, wait 1 second. Gotta put on my glasses. Put on my glasses. All right, everybody. I'm excited for this one. I'm excited. I don't know what's gonna happen. Oh boy. And Kelly as well. Happy birthday, Kelly! And Snake? Who's Snake? I don't know who Snake is. But happy birthday to all of you. All right. Let's go. Let's go! Where were we? Sorry. Oh, let's split up. Right, that's where he split up. Somewhere here, somewhere here. Okay, here we go. I know where we are. Let's put on some creep music instead. There we go. They sped off up adjacent aisles. Harry could hear the others' footsteps echoing through the towering piles of junk, of bottles, hats, crates, chairs, books, weapons, broomsticks, bats. Somewhere near here, Harry muttered to himself. Somewhere. And as Sharon says, please like the stream, that'd be nice. And that one person, go ahead and do your thing. Deeper and deeper into the labyrinth he went, looking for objects he recognized from his own previous trip into the room. His breath was loud in his ears. Is this music even playing? Yeah, it is, okay. And then his very soul seemed to shiver. There it was. Right ahead, the blistering old cupboard in which he had hidden his old potions book, and on top of it, the pock-marked stone warlock wearing a dusty old wig and what looked like an ancient, discolored tiara. The final Horcrux. Well, not the final one, but the final inanimate one. He had already stretched out his hand, though he remained 10 feet away, when a voice behind him said, "Hold it, Potter." He skidded to a halt and turned around. Crabbe and Goyelle were standing behind him, shoulder to shoulder, wands pointed right at Harry. Though the small space between their jeering faces, he saw Draco Malfoy. Okay, I guess this confrontation's gonna happen now. Yikes! "It's my wand you're holding, Potter," said Malfoy, pointing his own through the gap between Crabbe and Goyelle. "Like a coward?" Hiding Also, sorry, just for a moment. What is Crabbe and Goyelle's thinking? I'll be a shield for him." "Not anymore," panted Harry, tightening his grip on the hawthorn wand. "Winners keepers, Malfoy." Who's lent you theirs?" "My mother," said Draco. "Mummy did. Mummy lent me her wand," said Draco. Harry laughed, though there was nothing very humorous about the situation. He could not hear Ron or Hermione anymore. They seemed to have run out of earshot, searching for the diadem. "So how come you three aren't with Voldemort?" asked Harry. Crabbe's actually speaking? Okay, well,
"Are going to be rewarded,"
said Crabbe. His voice was surprisingly soft for such an enormous person. We're going to be rewarded. Harry had hardly ever heard him speak before. I don't think he ever has he? Aside from when Harry and Ron were them. Crabbe was smiling like a small child promised a large bag of sweets.
We hung back, Potter. We decided not to go. Decided to bring you to him.
Good plan, said Harry in mock admiration. He could not believe that he was this close and was going to be thwarted by Malfoy, Crabbe, and Goyle. He began edging slowly backwards towards the place where the Horcrux sat lopsided upon the bust. If he could just get his hands on it before the fight broke out. So how did you get in here? He asked, trying to distract them. I virtually lived in the room of hidden things all last year, said Malfoy, his voice brittle. Brittle? I know how to get in. Oh, Goyle. What was Goyle? What was Goyle again? I think he was... What was he? Was he French? I think... No, I can't remember what Goyle was.
We was hiding in the corridor outside, grunted Goyle.
French, German, Rocky.
Right, I can... Sylvester Stallone. We was hiding in the corridor outside, grunted Goyle. We could do disillusionment charms now. And then... His face split into a gormless grin. You turned up right in front of us and said you was looking for a diadem. What's a diadem?
Harry's? Ron's voice echoed suddenly from the other side of the wall to Harry's right. Are you talking to someone? With a whip-like movement, Crabbe pointed his wand at the 50-foot mountain of old furniture, of broken trunks, of old books and robes and unidentifiable junk, and shouted, Descendo! The wall began to totter, then crumbled into the aisle next door where Ron stood. Run! Harry bellowed, as somewhere out of sight Hermione screamed, and Harry heard innumerable objects crashing to the floor on the other side of the destabilized wall. He pointed his wand at the rampart, cried, Finite! Finite, and it steadied. Welcome, Ashwina. Welcome to your first live. No! Shouted Malfoy, staying Crabbe's arm as the latter made to repeat his spell. If you wreck the room, you might bury this diadem thing.
What's the matter? Said Crabbe, tugging himself free. It's Potter the Dark Lord wants. Who cares about diadem?
Potter came in here to get it, said Malfoy with disguised impatience at the slow-wittedness of his colleagues. So that must mean...
Must mean?
Crabbe turned on Malfoy with undisguised ferocity. This is new. Background music's pretty quiet. Yeah, it does sound pretty quiet to me too, so how about I turn it up a bit? There, is that better? Let me know. I don't know, I didn't change anything, but... The mystery of Windows.
Who cares what you think? I don't take your orders no more, Draco. You and your dad are finished.
Harry! Shouted Ron again from the other side of the junk wall. What's going on?
Harry!
Mimicked Crabbe.
What's going... No, Potter! Crucio!
Harry had lunged for the tiara. Crabbe's curse missed him, but hit the stone bust, which flew into the air. The diadem soared upwards, and then dropped out of sight into the mass of objects on which the bust had rested. Stop! Malfoy shouted at Crabbe, his voice echoing through the enormous room. The Dark Lord wants him alive!
So, I'm not killing him, am I?
Yelled Crabbe, throwing off Malfoy's restraining arm.
But if I can, I will. The Dark Lord wants him dead anyway. What's the difference?
A jet of scarlet light shot past Harry by inches. Hermione had run round the corner behind him and sent a stunning spell, straight at Crabbe's head. It only missed because Malfoy pulled him out of the way. It's that mudblood! Avada Kedavra! Harry saw Hermione dive aside, and his fury that Crabbe had aimed to kill wiped all else from his mind. He shot a stunning spell at Crabbe, who lurched out of the way, knocking Malfoy's wand out of his hand, and it rolled out of sight beneath a mountain of broken furniture and boxes. My mom thinks you sound like Arnold Schwarzenegger. That's the point. Don't kill him! Don't kill him! Malfoy yelled at Crabbe and Goyle, who were both aiming at Harry. Their split seconds hesitation was all that Harry needed. Expelliarmus! Goyle's wand flew out of his hand and disappeared into the bulwark of objects beside him. Goyle leapt foolishly on the spot, trying to retrieve it. Malfoy jumped out of range of Hermione's second stunning spell, and Ron, appearing suddenly at the end of the aisle, shot a full body-bind curse at Crabbe, which narrowly missed. Crabbe wheeled round and screamed, Avada Kedavra! Again. Ron leapt out of sight to avoid the jet of green light. The wandless Malfoy cowered behind a three-legged wardrobe as Hermione charged towards them, hitting Goyle with a stunning spell as she came. It's somewhere here! Harry yelled at her, pointing at the pile of junk into which the old tiara had fallen. Look for it while I go and help. Harry! She screamed. A roaring, billowing noise. I think we can change the music to something even more intense. A roaring, billowing noise behind him gave him a moment's warning. He turned and saw both Ron and Crabbe running as hard as they could up the aisle towards them. Like it hot, scum! Roared Crabbe as he ran. But he seemed to have no control over what he had done. Flames of abnormal size were pursuing them, licking up the sides of the junk bulwarks, which were crumbling to soot at their touch. Augmenti! Harry bawled, but the jet of water that soared from the tip of his wand evaporated in the air. Run! Malfoy grabbed the stunned Goyle and dragged him along. Crabbe outstripped all of them, now looking terrified. Harry, Ron, and Hermione pelted along in his wake, and the fire pursued them. It was not normal fire. Let me know if this music is all somehow off too, because I have no idea. Might not be, might be. Now the fire was mutating. No, wait, Harry, it was not normal fire. Crabbe had used a curse of which Harry had no knowledge. Huh. As they turned a corner, the flames chased them as though they were alive, sentient, intent upon killing them. Now the fire was mutating, forming a gigantic pack of fiery beasts, flaming serpents, chimeras, and dragons rose and fell and rose again, and the detritus of centuries on which they were feeding was thrown up into the air into their fanged mouths, tossed high on clawed feet before being consumed by the inferno. Pretty intense. Malfoy, Crabbe, and Goyle had vanished from view. Harry, Ron, and Hermione stopped dead. The fiery monsters were circling them, drawing closer and closer. Claws and horns and tails lashed, and the heat was solid as a wall around them. What can we do? Hermione screamed over the deafening roars of the fire. What can we do? Here! Harry seized a pair of heavy-looking broomsticks from the nearest pile of junk and threw one to Ron, who pulled Hermione onto it behind him. Harry swung his leg over the second broom, and, with hard kicks to the ground, they soared up into the air, missing by feet the horned beak of a flaming raptor that snapped its jaws at them. Raptor as in the dinosaur? Yes, please. The smoke and heat were becoming overwhelming. Below them, the cursed fire was consuming the contraband of generations of hunted students, the guilty outcomes of 1,000 banned experiments, the secrets of the countless souls who had sought refuge in their room. Music is low. It just got a bit quieter, but how about this? There we go. Harry could not see a trace of Malfoy, Crabbe, or Goyelle anywhere. He swooped as low as he dared over the marauding monsters of flame to try and find them, but there was nothing but fire. What a terrible way to die. He had never wanted this. "Harry, let's get out! Let's get out!" bellowed Ron, though it was impossible to see where the door was through the black smoke. And then Harry heard a thin, piteous human scream from amidst the terrible commotion, the thunder of devouring flame. "It's too dangerous!" Ron yelled. But Harry wheeled in the air, his glasses giving his eyes some small protection from the smoke. Of course, Harry's heart. He raked the firestorm below, seeking a sign of life, a limb or a face that was not yet charred like wood. And he saw them. Malfoy with his arms around the unconscious Goyelle, the pair of them perched on a fragile tower of charred desks. And Harry dived. Malfoy saw him coming and raised one arm, but even as Harry grasped it, he knew at once that it was no good. Goyelle was too heavy, and Malfoy's hand, covered in sweat, slid instantly out of Harry's. "If we die for them, I'll kill you, Harry!" roared Ron's voice, and as a great flaming chimera bore down upon them, he and Hermione dragged Goyelle onto their broom and rose, rolling and pitching into the air at once more as Malfoy clambered up behind Harry. What if they just pushed them off behind the broom? And also Crabbe is dead? Don't tell me, but maybe. "The door! Get to the door! The door!" screamed Malfoy in Harry's ear, and Harry sped up, following Ron, Hermione, and Goyelle through the billowing black smoke, hardly able to breathe. And all around them, the last few objects unburned by the devouring flames were flung into the air, as the creatures of the cursed fire cast them high in celebration, cups and shields, a sparkling necklace, and an old discolored tiara. "What are you doing? What are you doing? The door's that way!" screamed Malfoy. But Harry made a hairpin swerve and dived. The diadem seemed to fall in slow motion, turning and glittering as it dropped towards the maw of a yawning serpent, and then he had it, caught it around his wrist. There we go. Harry swerved again as the serpent lunged at him. He soared upwards and straight towards the place where, he prayed, the door stood open. Ron, Hermione, and Goyelle had vanished. Malfoy was screaming and holding Harry so tightly it hurt. Then, through the smoke, Harry saw a rectangular patch on the wall and steered the broom at it. And moments later, clean air filled his lungs, and they collided with the wall in the corridor beyond. They made it out! And they got the tiara! They did! Malfoy fell off the broom and lay face down, gasping, coughing, and retching. Harry rolled over and sat up. The door to the room of requirement had vanished, and Ron and Hermione sat panting on the floor beside Goyelle, who was still unconscious. "Crabbe!" choked Malfoy as soon as he could speak. "Crabbe!" "He's dead," said Ron harshly. Crabbe did act a fool there. He really did act a fool. There was silence, apart from panting and coughing. Then a number of huge bangs shook the castle, and a great cavalcade of transparent figures galloped past on horses, their heads screaming with bloodlust under their arms. Harry staggered to his feet when the headless hunt had passed and looked around. Okay, what? Transparent figures galloped with their heads screaming with bloodlust under their arms. So the ghosts of the castles, hopefully going to war for them? Hopefully. The battle was still going on all around him. He could hear more screams than those of the retreating ghosts. Panic flared within him. Nothing to be Crabbe about. Nice, Elise. Nice. "Where's Ginny?" he said sharply. "She was here. She was supposed to be going back into the room of requirement." Blimey, do you reckon it'll still work after that fire? Asked Ron, but he too got to his feet, rubbing his chest and looking left and right. Shall we split up and look? No, said Hermione, getting to her feet too. Malfoy and Goyelle remained slumped hopelessly on the corridor floor. Neither of them had wands. Let's stick together. I say we go... Harry, what's that on your arm? What? Oh, yeah. He pulled the diadem from his wrist. I totally forgot about it too. And held it up. It was still hot, blackened with soot, but as he looked at it closely, he was just able to make out the tiny words etched upon it. Wit beyond measure is man's greatest treasure. A blood-like substance, dark and tarry, seemed to be leaking from the diadem. Suddenly, Harry felt the thing vibrate violently, then break apart in his hands, and as it did so, he thought he heard the faintest, most distant scream of pain, echoing not from the grounds or the castle, but from the thing that had just fragmented in his fingers. Why did it break? I guess they'll explain it, but why? 150 people? That's a record! Welcome, everybody watching. This is awesome. And if this is your first time, no spoilers in the chat, reading Harry Potter for the very first time, somewhere close to the end of the 7th book. Like the video, join our Discord, have fun. It must have been fiend fire, whimpered Hermione, her eyes on the broken pieces. Sorry? Fiend fire, cursed fire. It's one of the substances that destroy Horcruxes, but I would never, ever have dared use it. It's so dangerous. How did Crabbe know how to... Must have learned from the Carrows, said Harry grimly. Shame he wasn't concentrating when they mentioned... Okay, so they're out of the intense moment. Shame he wasn't concentrating when they mentioned how to stop it, really, said Ron, whose hair, like Hermione's, was singed and whose face was blackened. If he hadn't tried to kill us all, I'd be quite sorry he was dead. But don't you realize, whispered Hermione, this means we can just get the snake. But she broke off as yells and shouts and the unmistakable noises of dueling filled the corridor. Where are we? Harry looked around and his heart seemed to fail. Death Eaters had penetrated Hogwarts. Fred and Percy had just backed into view, both of them dueling masked and hooded men. Harry, Ron, and Hermione ran forwards to help. Jets of light flew in every direction, and the man dueling Percy backed off fast. Then his hood slipped, and they saw a high forehead and streaked hair. "Hello, Minister!" bellowed Percy, sending a neat jinx straight at Thicknessy. Oh, what was Thicknessy's voice? I don't remember. Who dropped his wand and clawed at the front of his robes, apparently in awful discomfort. Did I mention I'm resigning? You're joking, Perce, shouted Fred, as the Death Eater he was battling collapsed under the weight of 3 separate stunning spells. Thicknessy had fallen to the ground with tiny spikes erupting all around over him. He seemed to be turning into some form of sea urchin. What a spell. What a spell. Greasy, right. No leading questions either, thank you very much. You're actually... Fred looked at Percy with glee. You actually are joking, Perce. I don't think I've heard you joke since you were... The air exploded. They had been grouped together. Harry, Ron, Hermione, Fred, and Percy. The 2 Death Eaters at their feet. One stunned, the other transfigured. And in that fragment of a moment, when danger seemed temporarily at bay, the world was rent apart. Harry felt himself flying through the air, and all he could do was hold as tightly as possible to that thin stick of wood that was his own one and only weapon, and shield his head in his arms. He heard the screams and yells of his companions without a hope of knowing what had happened to them. And then the world resolved itself into pain and semi-darkness. He was half buried in the wreckage of a corridor that had been subjected to a terrible attack. Cold air told him that the side of the castle had been blown away, and hot stickiness on his cheek told him that he was bleeding copiously. Then he heard a terrible cry that pulled at his insides, that expressed agony of a kind neither flame nor curse could cause, and he stood up, swaying, more frightened than he had been that day, more frightened, perhaps, than he had been in his life. And Hermione was struggling to her feet in the wreckage. And three red-headed men were grouped on the ground where the wall had blasted apart. Harry grabbed Hermione's hand as they staggered and stumbled over stone and wood. "No, no, no!" somebody was shouting. "No, Fred, no!" And Percy was shaking his brother, and Ron was kneeling beside them, and Fred's eyes stared without seeing, the ghost of his last laugh still etched upon his face. What? Oh, man. I did not expect that. Fred. Fred is done. He's gone. Oh. I kind of want to curse, but I won't. So, oh, man. I don't know. What is George going to do? How is George going to react? Oh, no. Oh, this is crazy. Fred is gone. I did not think the brothers would be affected by this. I don't know. I thought it would be someone else. Oh, man. This last thing is a joke. And what's really nice, it was a point of connection with his brother. That's nice. Oh my gosh. Oh, and they had so many plans together. They're going to do so many things in life together. Their business, everything together. I feel bad for all of them, but George, I don't know if George is in this scene yet, but oh, man. Man, this sucks. Sucks really bad. All right. Gonna keep on going. Chapter 32. The Elder Wand. No, George isn't there. Oh, he's going to lose it. He's going to lose it. He might break out in anger and do something silly. I hope not. No doubt there's going to be more deaths before this. No doubt. This is going to be a rough journey. Chapter 32. The Elder Wand. The world had ended. So why had the battle not ceased? The castle fallen silent in horror, and every combatant laid down their arms. Harry's mind was in free fall, spinning out of control, unable to grasp the impossibility, because Fred Weasley could not be dead. The evidence of all his senses must be lying. And then a body fell past the hole blown into the side of the school, and curses flew in at them from the darkness, hitting the wall behind their heads. "Get down!" Harry shouted, as more curses flew through the night. He and Ron had both grabbed Hermione and pulled her to the door, but Percy lay across Fred's body, shielding it from further harm. And when Harry shouted, "Percy, come on! We've got to move!" he shook his head. "Percy!" Harry saw tear tracks streaking the grime coating Ron's face as he seized his elder brother's shoulders and pulled, but Percy would not budge. "Percy, you can't do anything for him. We're going to..." Hermione screamed. And Harry, turning, did not need to ask why. A monstrous spider the size of a small car was trying to climb through the huge hole in the wall. One of Aragog's descendants had joined the fight. Oh, good. Oh, very good. This is excellent. How are we doing, everyone? We are fine, because giant spiders have joined the fray right when one of us has flippin' died. Very good. We wanted this. We wanted a giant spider to get in on the action. That's what I ask myself when people die and there's a war. I ask myself, where are the spiders? Ron and Harry shouted together. Their spells collided, and this is so crazy. And the monster was blown backwards, its legs jerking horribly, and vanished into the darkness. Good, get out of here, you. It brought friends. Harry called to the others, glancing over the edge of the castle through the hole in the wall the curses had blasted. More giant spiders were climbing the side of the building, liberated from the forbidden forest into which the Death Eaters must have penetrated. Yeah, cheers. Harry fired stunning spells down upon them, knocking the lead monster into its fellows, good, so that they rolled back down the building and out of sight. Then more curses came soaring over Harry's head, so close he felt the force of them blow his hair. Let's move now! Pushing Hermione ahead of him with Ron, Harry stooped to seize Fred's body under the armpits. Percy, realizing what Harry was trying to do, stopped clinging to the body and helped. Together, crouching low to avoid the curses flying at them from the grounds, they hauled Fred out of the way. Here, said Harry, and they placed him in a niche where a suit of armor had stood earlier. He could not bear to look at Fred a second longer than he had to, and after making sure that the body was well hidden, he took off after Ron and Hermione. Sophia, no, I have read all the other books, yes. Previous books. Okay. Malfoy and Goyle had vanished, but at the end of the corridor, which was now full of dust and falling masonry glass long gone from the windows, he saw many people running backwards and forwards, whether friends or foes he could not tell. Rounding the corner, Percy let out a bull-like roar, "Rookwood!" and sprinted off in the directions of a tall man who was pursuing a couple of students. Hurry, in here! Wait, who's Rookwood again? Remind me this, and don't spoil anything. I'll read one of the mods' answers, just in case. Hurry, in here! Hermione screamed. She had pulled Ron behind a tapestry. They seemed to be wrestling together, and for one mad second Harry thought they were embracing again. Then he saw that Hermione was trying to restrain Ron, to stop him running after Percy. Listen to me! Listen, Ron! I want to help! I want to kill Death Eaters! His face was contorted, smeared with dust and smoke, and he was shaking with rage and grief. Ron, we're the only ones who can end it. Please, Ron, we need the snake. We've got to kill the snake, said Hermione. Rookwood is a Death Eater who works at the Ministry. Thank you. Death Eater who works for the Ministry. Yes, great. Thank you. But Harry knew how Ron felt. Pursuing another Horcrux could not bring the satisfaction of revenge. He too wanted to fight, to punish them, the people who had killed Fred. And he wanted to find the other Weasleys, and above all make quite sure that Ginny was not. But he could not permit that idea to form in his mind. We will fight, Hermione said. We'll have to reach the snake, but let's not lose sight now of what we're supposed to be doing. We're the only ones who can end it. She was crying too, and she wiped her face on her torn and cinched sleeve as she spoke. But she took great, heaving breaths to calm herself, still keeping a tight hold on Ron. She turned to Harry. You need to find out where Voldemort is, because he'll have the snake with him. Won't he? Do it, Harry. Look inside him! Why was it so easy? Because his scar had been burning for hours, yearning to show him Voldemort's thoughts. He closed his eyes on her command, and at once the screams and the bangs and all the discordant sounds of the battle were drowned until they became distant, as though he stood far, far away from them. He was standing in the middle of a desolate but strangely familiar room, with peeling paper on the walls, and all the windows boarded except for one. The sounds of the assault on the castle were muffled and distant. The single unblocked window revealed distant bursts of light where the castle stood, but inside the room it was dark except for a solitary oil lamp. He was rolling his wand between his fingers, watching it, his thoughts on the room in the castle, the secret room only he had ever found, the room, like the chamber, that you had to be clever and cunning and inquisitive to discover. He was confident that the boy would not find the diadem, although Dumbledore's puppet had come much further than he had ever expected. Too far. Who's saying this? Lucius Malfoy. "My lord," said a voice, desperate and cracked. He turned. There was Lucius Malfoy, sitting in the darkest corner, ragged, and still bearing the marks of the punishment he had received after the boy's last escape. One of his eyes remained closed and puffy. "My lord, please, my son."
If your son is dead, Lucius, it is not my fault. He did not come and join me like the rest of the Slytherins. Perhaps he has decided to befriend Harry Potter.
"No, never," whispered Malfoy.
You must hope not.
Aren't you afraid, my lord, that Potter might die at another hand but yours?" asked Malfoy, his voice shaking. "Wouldn't it be, forgive me, more prudent to call off this battle, enter the castle and seek him yourself?"
Do not pretend, Lucius. You wish the battle to cease so that you can discover what has happened to your son. And I do not need to seek Potter. Before the night is out, Potter will have to come and find me.
Voldemort dropped his gaze once more to the wand in his fingers. It troubled him. And those things that troubled Lord Voldemort needed to be rearranged. There goes that third person again.
Go and fetch Snape.
Snape, my lord.
Snape, now! I need him. There is a service I require from him. Go.
Frightened, stumbling a little through the gloom, Lucius left the room. Voldemort continued to stand there, twirling the wand between his fingers, staring at it. I'm going to read what Los is saying. Hey, Sophia, please keep talk of all the movies off the chat because those spoilers there. Yeah. For those of you just joining, you might not know, but the movies are also considered spoilers because we're going to watch them afterwards. Just so you know. Nobody's mad. Just avoid them.
It is the only way, Nagini,
he whispered. He looked around, and there was a great, thick snake, now suspended in midair, twisting gracefully within the enchanted, protected space he had made for her. A starry, transparent sphere somewhere between glittering cage and tank. Snake's gonna be well protected. With a gasp, Harry pulled back and opened his eyes. At the same moment, his ears were assaulted with the screeches and cries, the smashes and the bangs of battle. He's in the shrieking shack. The snake's with him. It's got some sort of magical protection around it. He just sent Lucius Malfoy to find Snape. Voldemort's sitting in the shrieking shack, said Hermione, outraged. He's not even fighting. He doesn't think he needs to fight, said Harry. He thinks I'm going to him. But why? He knows I'm after Horcruxes. He's keeping Nagini close beside him. Obviously, I'm going to have to go to him to get near the things. Here's what I think. I think Harry, they're going to join the battle and just keep weeding out the other person until he's going to force Voldemort to come to him. That's what he's going to do. He's going to force Voldemort to come to him. All right. For some reason, the music is quiet today, and I'm not entirely sure. So I'll figure it out later on. But yeah, we're just going to keep on going. He knows I'm after Horcruxes. He's keeping Nagini close beside him. Obviously, I'm going to have to go to get him near the things. Right, said Ron, squaring his shoulders. So you can't go. That's what he wants. What he's expecting. You stay here and look after Hermione, and I'll go and get it. Harry cut across Ron. You two stay here. I'll go under the cloak, and I'll be back as soon as possible. No, said Hermione. It makes much more sense if I take the cloak and... Don't even think about it, Ron snarled at her. They're all courageous and brave. Oh, it might not be playing through the speakers. That's why. Oh. Oh, okay. Well, wait. I don't know. You're only hearing it through the speakers. Okay. Well, that's just the case. Okay. Before Hermione could get further then, Ron, I'm just as capable. The tapestry at the top of the staircase on which they stood was ripped open. Potter! Two masked Death Eaters stood there, but even before their wands were fully raised, Hermione shouted, Glissio! The stairs beneath their feet flattened into a chute, and she, Harry, and Ron hurtled down it, unable to control their speed, but so fast that the Death Eater's stunning spells flew far from above their heads. They shot through the concealing tapestry at the bottom and spun onto the floor, hitting the opposite wall. Duro! Cried Hermione, pointing her wand at the tapestry, and there were two loud, sickening crunches as the tapestry turned to stone, and the Death Eaters pursuing them crumbled against it. Hermione killing it as usual. Hermione just nailing being a witch. Get back! Shouted Ron, and he, Harry, and Hermione flattened themselves against a door as the herd of galloping desks thundered past and straight into Harry's face. Shepherded by a sprinting Professor McGonagall. She's got desks fighting for her. She appeared not to notice them. Her hair had come down and there was a gash on her cheek. As she turned... I'm gonna let my hair down. As she turned the corner, she heard her scream, Charge! Harry, you get the cloak on, said Hermione. Never mind us. But he threw it over all three of them. Large though they were, he doubted anyone would see their disembodied feet through the dust that clogged the air. The falling stone, the shimmer of spells. They ran down the next staircase, and it's almost they just like them. We haven't even had any time to really mourn Fred's death. It's just on to the next. They ran down the next staircase and found themselves in a corridor full of duelers. The portraits on either side of the fighters were crammed with figures, screaming advice and encouragement, while Death Eaters, both masked and unmasked, dueled students and teachers. Dean had won himself a wand, for he was face to face with Dolohov. Dean? Dean? Parvati with Travers. Harry, Ron, and Hermione raised their wands at once, ready to strike, but the duelers were weaving and darting around so much that there was a strong likelihood of hurting one of their own side if they cast curses. Even as they stood braced, looking for the opportunity to act, there came a great whee! And looking up, Harry saw Peeves, zooming over them, dropping Snargaluff pods down onto the Death Eaters, whose heads were suddenly engulfed in wriggling green tubers like fat worms. Ah! A fistful of tubers had hit the cloak over Ron's head. The slimy green roots were suspended improbably in mid-air as Ron tried to shake them loose. Dean did something, that is true.
Someone's invisible there!
Shouted a masked Death Eater, pointing. Dean made the most of the Death Eater's momentary distraction, knocking him out with a stunning spell. There you go, Dean did something. Dolohov attempted to retaliate, and Parvati shot a body-bind curse at him. "Let's go!" Harry yelled. And he, Ron, and Hermione gathered the cloak tightly around themselves and pelted, heads down, through the midst of the fighters, slipping a little in pools of Snargaluff juice towards the top of the marble staircase into the entrance hall. "I'm Draco Malfoy! I'm Draco! I'm on your side!" Draco was in the upper landing, pleading with another masked Death Eater. Harry stunned the Death Eater as they passed. Malfoy looked around, beaming for his savior, and Ron punched him from under the cloak. Yes, he did. Yes, he just straight up, just like Hermione. Once from Hermione, and another from Ron. Malfoy fell backwards on top of the Death Eater, his mouth bleeding, utterly bemused. "And that's the second time we've saved your life tonight, you two-faced bastard," Ron yelled. Good. There were more duelers all over the stairs and in the hall. Death Eaters everywhere Harry looked. Yaxley close to the front doors, in combat with Flitwick, a masked Death Eater dueling Kingsley right beside them. Students ran in every direction, some carrying or dragging injured friends. This is nuts. Harry directed a stunning spell towards the masked Death Eater. It missed, but nearly hit Neville, who had emerged from nowhere brandishing armfuls of venomous tentacula, which looped itself happily around the nearest Death Eater and began reeling him in. "Neville, you get out of here! You get out of here!" Weasley is our king. Harry, Ron, and Hermione sped down the marble staircase. Glass shattered to their left, and the Slytherin hourglass that had recorded house points spilled its emeralds everywhere, so that people slipped and staggered as they ran. Two bodies fell from the balcony overhead as they reached the ground, and a gray blur that Harry took for an animal sped four-legged across the hall to sink its teeth into one of the fallen. "No!" shrieked Hermione, and with a deafening blast from her wand, Fenrir Greyback is back, was thrown backwards from the feebly stirring body of Lavender Brown. Lavender Brown is done. Well, maybe. Maybe she's just injured. He hit the marble banisters and struggled to return to his feet. Then, with a bright white flash and a crack... Where's the little doggo? Oh, he's over there. He hit the marble banisters and struggled to return to his feet. Then, with a bright white flash and a crack, a crystal ball fell on top of his head, and he crumpled to the ground and did not move. Trelawney. "I have more!" shrieked Professor Trelawney from over the banisters. "More for any who want them! Here!" And with a movement like a tennis serve, Wait. Oh, thank goodness. Oh, Fenrir Greyback. Oh, good. I thought this was Harry who got hit on the head by one of Professor Trelawney's crystal balls, and I thought I was about to get really mad at her. Okay. And with a movement like a tennis serve, she heaved another enormous crystal sphere from her bag, waved her wand through the air, and caused the ball to speed across the hall and smash through a window. At the same moment, the heavy wooden front door burst open, and more of the gigantic spiders forced their way into the entrance hall. Screams of terror rent the air. The fighters scattered, Death Eaters and Hogwartians alike, and red and green jets of light flew into the midst of the oncoming monsters, which shuddered and reared, more terrifying than ever. "How do we get out?" yelled Ron over all the screaming. But before either Harry or Hermione could answer, they were bowled aside. Hagrid had oh, please, please don't let anything happen to Hagrid. Hagrid had come thundering down the stairs, brandishing his flowery pink umbrella. "Don't hurt him! Don't hurt him!" he yelled. "Hagrid, no!" Harry forgot everything else. He sprinted out from under the cloak, running bent double to avoid the curses illuminating the whole hall. "Hagrid, come back!" But he was not even halfway to Hagrid when he saw it happen. Hagrid vanished amongst the spiders, and with a great scurrying, a foul swarming movement, they retreated under the onslaught of spells, Hagrid buried in their midst. "Hagrid!" Harry heard someone calling his own name. Dear everything. Let them be his friends. Harry heard someone calling his own name. Whether friend or foe, he did not care. He was sprinting down the front steps into the dark grounds, and the spiders were swarming away with their prey, and he could see nothing of Hagrid at all. "Hagrid!" He thought he could make out an enormous arm waving from the midst of the spider swarm. But as he... Well, that's a good sign, hopefully. Maybe waving. But as he made to chase after them, his way was impeded by a monumental foot, which swung down out of the darkness and made the ground on which he stood shudder. There is just too much going on. He looked up. A giant stood before him, 20 feet high, its head hidden in shadow. Nothing but its tree-like, hairy shins, illuminated by light from the castle doors. With one brutal, fluid movement, it smashed a massive fist through an upper window, and glass rained down upon Harry, forcing him back under the shelter of the doorway. "Oh my!" shrieked Hermione, as she and Ron caught up with Harry and gazed upward at the giant, now trying to seize people through the window above. "Don't!" Ron yelled, grabbing Hermione's hand as she raised her wand. "Stun him and he'll crush half the castle." "Hagrid!" Grop came lurching around. A lot of people are writing stuff, but I'm not reading anything, just for safety. Grop came lurching around the corner of the castle. Only now did Harry realize that Grop was, indeed, an undersized giant. The gargantuan monster trying to crush people on the upper floors looked around and let out a roar. The stone steps trembled as he stomped towards his smaller kin, and Grop's lopsided mouth fell open, showing yellow, half-brick-sized teeth, and then they launched themselves at each other with a savage... I'm just reading only the mods' comments. And then they launched themselves at each other with the savagery of lions. "Run!" Harry roared. The night was full of hideous yells and blows as the giants wrestled. "Oh, what? Oh, wait. Hot damn. What? Oh. Oh. I thought the first giant was Grop. Oh, damn. There's a giant fight happening. This is badass. This is dope." The night was full of hideous yells and blows as the giants wrestled, and he seized Hermione's hand and tore down the steps into the grounds, Ron bringing up the rear. Harry had not lost hope of finding and saving Hagrid. Quick thought and question that I'm just pondering, you don't have to answer. Do spells get affected by size? Like, can you use any of the spells that they've been using till now, and it'll have the same effect on something large as something small? That's what I'm wondering. He ran so fast that they were halfway towards the forest before they were brought up short again. The air around them had frozen. Harry's breath caught and solidified in his chest. Shapes moved out in the darkness, swirling figures of concentrated blackness, moving in a great wave towards the castle, their faces hooded and their breath rattling. Ron and Hermione closed in beside him as the sounds of fighting behind them grew suddenly muted, deadened, because a silence only Dementors could bring was falling thickly through the night. "Come on, Harry!" said Hermione's voice from a very long way away. "Patronus's Harry! Come on!" He raised his wand, but a dull hopelessness was spreading through him. Fred was gone, and Hagrid was surely dying or already dead. How many more lay dead that he did not yet know about? He felt as though his soul had already left his body. "Harry, come on!" screamed Hermione. 100 Dementors were advancing, gliding towards them, sucking their way closer to Harry's despair, which was like a promise of a feast. He saw Ron's silver terrier burst into the air, flicker feebly, and expire. He saw Hermione's otter twist in mid-air and fade, and his own wand trembled in his hand, and he almost welcomed the oncoming oblivion, the promise of nothing, of no feeling. And then a silver hare, a boar, and a fox soared past Harry and Ron's heads. The Dementors fell back before the creature's approach. 3 more people had arrived out of the darkness to stand beside them, their wands outstretched, continuing to cast their Patronuses. Luna, Ernie, and Seamus. There they are. There they are. "That's right," said Luna encouragingly as if they were back in the room of requirement. This was simply spell practice for the DA. "That's right, Harry. Come on. Think of something happy." "Something happy," he said, his voice cracked. "We're all still here," she whispered. "We're still fighting. Come on now." Luna. She's just beautiful. She's beautiful. There was a silver spark and a wavering light, and then, with the greatest effort it had ever cost him, the stag burst from the end of Harry's wand. It cantered forwards, and now the Dementors scattered in earnest, and immediately the night was mild again, but the sound of the surrounding battle were loud in his ears. "Can't thank you enough," said Ron shakily, turning to Luna, Ernie, and Seamus. You just saved." With a roar and an... This just keeps on going. It is relentless. With a roar and an earth-quaking tremor, another giant came lurching out of the darkness from the direction of the forest, brandishing a club taller than any of them.
"Let's just get the stress level higher than ever, please. Let's get heart attacks, everybody."
"Run!" Harry shouted again, but the others needed no telling. They all scattered, and not a second too soon. For next moment the creature's vast foot had fallen exactly where they had been standing. Harry looked around. Ron and Hermione were following him, but the other 3 had vanished back into the battle. "I do need your help. Once again, I'm good for going another 5 to 10 minutes, but is this a good place to stop? Or in the 5 or 10 minutes? I unfortunately today I do have to stop at a time. I know it's very frustrating for me too. I know, but that's just how it goes. But is this a good place to stop, or should I go for another 5 or 10 minutes? Stop now. Probably stop. Okay, that's an hour. That's good. Oh boy, this is some stressful times. Yeah, Dexter's like pawing against the door. I guess he wants to go out pee too. Oh, I feel stressed. I feel stressed. That was very stressful. Lots going on. Fred's death? Jeez. And now all of this craziness, it just like goes from one thing to the next. Oh, he's walking around like crazy. I think he really needs to pee. Okay, friends, that's too much. But I will be back tomorrow. 163 people live. It's a record. Never had this many. Welcome. I'm really happy you're all joining. Oh, man. I will see you all tomorrow for the next bit of this battle or whatever's going to happen. Gee whiz. Love you all. See you tomorrow.